Hey guys, this is Nick, and I have something to confess. I have moved to Fedora and GNOME for a little bit more than a month now. If you follow the channel, you probably know that I used KDE and I talked a lot about how I liked it, what I liked about it, how I customized it, but it's all gone now. It's erased. I replaced Manjaro and KDE by Fedora and Vanilla GNOME. Vanilla GNOME, no extensions. So let's take a look at how that experience went. And speaking of experience, your experience on your servers running CentOS 8 might turn to a nightmare if you don't listen to today's sponsor's message. Thanks to TuxCare for sponsoring this video. As you might know, CentOS 8 will go end of life this December. This means that your servers won't get any security patches anymore and will basically leave your work environment and all your data in a potentially vulnerable state. Now, you could migrate to a CentOS compatible distro in a hurry, but there's another solution if you need more time. You can extend CentOS's life by 4 more years, thanks to TuxCare Extended Lifecycle Support for CentOS 8. This basically means that all your CentOS 8 devices will still get security patches for all recently discovered vulnerabilities, so you can plan your transition and migration with a little bit more peace of mind. Now, TuxCare has a calculator online to let you figure out the cost of running CentOS without support, or you can click the link in the description below and see how TuxCare can get you a little bit more time to plan your migration securely. Okay, so first, why move from KDE and Manjaro to Fedora and GNOME? Well, there is no fault of KDE or Manjaro that made me leave. My experience with this distro and this desktop was really good. It managed to not crash and burn on me, the desktop was customized to my needs and likes, and I could install anything I wanted. The main reason why I moved is that I have to use every desktop environment there is out there and change things up regularly. It's the only way I can stay up to date on what's happening there, how usable these desktops are, and not get stuck in a specific way of doing things. It's the only way I can stay as objective as possible about these desktops, which are the main thing I talk about here. So I had used GNOME in the past, but never as their developers intended. I used an implementation of GNOME, specifically Manjaro's implementation of GNOME, with a dock, with extensions, with GNOME tweaks. I never used Vanilla GNOME for any extended periods of time, apart from when I made my Is GNOME user-friendly video. So it was time to take a look at the experience, and that's what I did. So let's begin with the experience with Vanilla GNOME. This GNOME here didn't come with any extensions. As a matter of fact, it didn't even come with the extensions app installed, so I got the basic layout with the activities view. Coming from my Mac-like layout on KDE with a global menu and a dock, it took me a while to adapt. A long while, like at least 10 minutes. Seriously, all it took to be proficient was rewiring my brain to use the top left as a hot corner instead of the top right. On KDE, I already launched apps mostly by hitting the super key and typing their name, and that works on GNOME without any issues either. My dock was on auto-hide in KDE, so I had to move the mouse to the bottom of the screen to see my apps, and on GNOME, I just press super and see my favorites. It's just a matter of using a keyboard shortcut instead of flinging my mouse around. It's pretty easy to get used to. The workflow isn't that different and was easy to adopt. The GNOME top bar is virtually identical to what I used on KDE, with the clock in the middle and the system indicators on the right. Now, I know that I sometimes defend the fact that app indicators aren't necessary for everyone, but personally I really need them. I use Nextcloud, which doesn't integrate with Nautilus to show the status of sync for specific items, and I need to know if sync is working or not. If there's an error, I need to know about it, and not discover it when I try to open an important file. For Discord, Steam and others, I couldn't care less if they display something here. I actually wish they didn't because it serves no purpose and it just looks bad. But for Nextcloud, I need that tray icon until something better integrated comes along. So I added one extension, the App Indicators one. Well, that's not true. I also added a second extension letting me switch from dark theme to light theme, depending on the time of day or manually. It's called Night Theme Switcher and it's cool. Okay, fine, it's not Vanilla GNOME anymore, I lied, I'm ready to accept my punishment. Now still, on the top bar, I don't get a global menu anymore. But as I said in my moving to KDE video, the only reason I used it was because KDE apps use menu bars, and I don't like menu bars inside of my app windows. On GNOME, my apps don't have menu bars, and so a global menu isn't needed. Well, until I stumble on an app that actually uses a menu bar, like for example GIMP, and in that case it sucks. But in most cases it's not needed. Now, in terms of workflow, the workspaces I now use a lot more, thanks to the easy access to the activities view. On KDE, I tended to only use one workspace, but two activities, one for work and one for play. On GNOME, I use two workspaces for my freelance job as a product owner. One for email, GitLab, and specifications, and another one with multiple browsers always open for testing. I also use two workspaces for play and the channel. One with a web browser for my more personal activities. No, that came out wrong. Not this kind of personal activities. Get your mouth out of the gutter. It's for reading articles and watching YouTube. I also have another workspace with everything I need to edit videos. Resolve, file managers, and a web browser for grabbing a few images. So basically, I really like the simplicity of GNOME, and the default workflow suits me really well. One key press and either clicking on the dock or typing the name of the file, folder, or app I want to use, and I'm all set. If I need to open multiple apps to set up a work environment, I just double press the super key to get to the apps grid, and I just drag my apps directly to the workspaces I want them to be in, and I'm ready to go. Not everything is roses and rainbows though, there are some issues. First, the default Advaita look. I know it's a bit of a personal taste, but that light theme is really bland to me. It's all really grey, and the rare blue accents don't make it a less glacial experience. The icon theme is really nice in my opinion, apart from files and folders. These manila beige folders are really not pretty, and the file MIME types lack a lot of contrast. On a white background, these white non-delineated icons are really not legible. And that's why I lied, and I applied my extension Night Theme Switcher to move to the dark version of Advaita. The dark Advaita theme is much better. It solves the contrast issue, and it looks more interesting than the bland grey default. It doesn't fix the sad beige folders, but that's something I got used to pretty quickly. App icons look crisp and colorful, and I like how they make the app grid look and feel. Now, another issue is the lack of integration of Nextcloud. In Dolphin, on KDE, I could right-click and get a shareable link to any file synced with Nextcloud. In Nautilus, that doesn't exist, and it makes me go to the web interface to do the same thing, which is much more cumbersome. I also find the system menu pretty lackluster, especially for sound. I can switch audio outputs, Elementary OS and KDE both allow that, and I think it's a good feature to have, or a bad feature not to have in GNOME's case. Apart from that, I got used to GNOME in no time, and I really enjoy how smooth and fast it feels. I never encounter any delays, any stutters, everything is zippy and responsive, and it's quite a pleasure to use. Now, onto the default GNOME apps. Now, it's no secret that I prefer simple, small apps that do one thing and do it well, and that's precisely how GNOME works, so I'm pretty happy about the move to GNOME apps. Now, no shades on KDE applications, but while they might be more powerful, they are way too complex for my needs, and they also don't look really good. They look old, with menu bars and tons of panels, and they have far too many features for my use case. So I moved from Kmail to Geary, which was a fantastic transition. Just setting up an account is night and day. In Geary, it took 2 minutes, just the time of data entry. In Kmail, I had to fumble through the enormous settings to even get my folders to show up. GNOME Calendar is much simpler and nicer looking than K-Organizer, although Calendar with a K seems like a more than worthy replacement with its Nextcloud Tasks integration. The GNOME software app blows Discover out of the water in the looks department, and in the legibility of the information it displays. It also handles updates better in my opinion, with more detail and a nicer interface. Functionally, it isn't doing anything Discover can do, but it is doing it in a more user-friendly and elegant way. The rest of my app roster is mainly made out of Elementary OS apps, which unfortunately don't look too good on GNOME. They don't use the Elementary OS icon theme or the Elementary OS GTK theme, which makes them look quite ugly and weird. I don't know if there's a way to make them use the right theme, but for now it's not the most pleasant experience. The GNOME apps themselves though, I really like. Some people might find them too limiting, and that's fine, but I don't have super complex needs in my graphical apps, and I prefer the simple look and feel, combined with the features I need, to the overload of tools and configurations I had to deal with on KDE before I could turn an application into something I could actually use. No, it's a matter of taste and of use case, but for mine at least, I found the GNOME experience way more coherent and looking a lot better with those header bars and that unified style. Now let's talk about my experience with Fedora. It's not a distro I liked particularly before. I actually quite disliked every encounter I had with it when I was trying to make those GNOME updates videos, because DNF never worked properly and the installer was horrible. Well, I can safely say my opinion has changed. But not about the installer though, it's still a horrible piece of software. Sure, it does its job, but in terms of user experience, it's bad. Really bad. The button placement is insane, with confirm buttons in the top left corner of the screen, something no other program does on any OS. The partition manager is hard to figure out in my opinion and isn't clear on what it's going to do, and the general install experience isn't very user-friendly at all. Compare it to the elementary OS installer or even the Ubuntu one and you will see why. I opted to install Fedora and keep my /home partition, and that let me accomplish the transition in about 1 hour. ISO download time, burning time, plus install and configuration. 1 hour. Try doing that on Windows. It was actually pretty amazingly fast. Sure, there were a few issues, like app icons being all blurry until I deleted the relevant config folder, and my GTK theme being set to the one I applied on KDE, which made me install GNOME tweaks to change it. But in the end, it was all pretty smooth, from moving an entire home partition to another distro and desktop entirely. Now, the DNF package manager I got used to, but only because I very rarely used it. Actually, I think I only used it once to install my NVIDIA drivers. I was expecting a bit of a fight with the distro as they don't include non-free drivers out of the box, but adding the repo and installing the driver was 3 command lines, and a reboot later it was all set. Super easy. Now, I still wish that Fedora added a checkbox at install that would download the NVIDIA driver and install it if you want them to, without including it on the ISO to keep it free of non-free software, but in the end it wasn't hard to do. Now, I also quite enjoyed the way Fedora handles updates. You install them from GNOME software, and while app updates apply automatically, system updates will install at the next reboot. Yes, just like Windows, and it's a good thing. I much prefer this, because it means that my system is stable, even after doing updates. I don't get apps not starting anymore because the library has been updated. I don't get crashes that force me to reboot. It's just nicer this way, and since the updates take like a few seconds to apply, they don't even slow boot down. And now for the issues, because there were some. First, Fedora 35 comes with Pipewire for audio, and while that system has a lot of promise, it has issues, especially, there's no X in that. I feel like I just said nuclear. Ugh. Especially with apps using ALSA. I had no audio playback in Audacity, and DaVinci Resolve had super stuttery audio that made it unusable. After I looked it up online, I managed to learn that I had to reroute ALSA audio to Pulse audio, which would then be picked up by Pipewire correctly. So I installed the necessary package and everything worked after that. Talk about a layer cake of audio systems. The main big unsolved issue though is Bluetooth. I could not get it to work right on Fedora. I use an MX Master 3 and a Bluetooth keyboard, and these keep going to sleep even while in use, and sometimes fail to reconnect. I also had huge lag spikes when using the mouse. I tried everything I could find online, disabling Bluetooth auto suspend in the kernel, changing values in /etc/bluetooth/main.conf, disabling auto suspend in modprobe.d, disabling Bluetooth ERTM. Nothing worked. I could eradicate the lag spikes, but my mouse and keyboard after a random amount of time would just disconnect, and no matter how hard I pressed them, they would not reconnect at all. I had to plug in another device, disable Bluetooth, turn it back on again, and then reconnect my peripherals. Not a workable solution. Suffice to say, I didn't stick with that, and I used Solar and a unifying Logitech receiver for the mouse, and I moved back to my Slimbook wired pseudo-mechanical keyboard. This is something that didn't happen on the same hardware on elementary OS or Manjaro. It's the same Intel Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card plugged in through PCIe, which has drivers in the kernel and works out of the box perfectly on other distros, just not on Fedora. So, will I stick to Fedora and GNOME in that incarnation? Yes, for a while. I really like that experience, that smooth GNOME implementation, and I got used to the meh Advaita theme. I don't love the look, but it works. Fedora is fast, it feels coherent, it gets updates regularly, and the latest versions of GNOME. It doesn't apply any customizations that would detract from the experience, and I like their future-oriented vision with the use of the latest Linux tech. As a matter of fact, it seems like Fedora 36 will make Wayland the default even for users of the NVIDIA proprietary drivers, so basically Wayland for everyone. GNOME is a great desktop for me, because I got used to it in no time and it just flies through everything I need to do. I never feel I need to fight it to do something. Now, I might move my laptop from elementary OS to Fedora. I'm not quite there yet, but the thought has been planted. Now, this video was made possible by Slimbook, and I know you guys already heard about Slimbook, but for those who didn't, they're based in Valencia, Spain. They make Linux, hardware, laptops, and desktops. And basically I only use their stuff, their laptop, their desktop, their keyboard. It's great, they have all keyboard layouts, all price points, and they ship worldwide. So if you need a new Linux device, check the link in the description below and click it. So thank you guys for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications. And if you didn't like it, well, you can dislike and you can tell me why in the comments. If you want to help support what I do, you can also join my Patreon subscribers and my YouTube members, and you'll get access to a weekly Patreon cast and the right to vote on the next topics I'll cover. All the links are in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!